The ground shook beneath Ambassador Kira's feet as another explosion lit up the sky above Corvara Prime. She pressed her hand against the cool metal wall of the orbital defense platform and watched her world die below. Fire rained down from the dark ships hanging in space like angry storm clouds. Each blast turned another piece of her beautiful homeworld into dust and smoke. The crystal towers that had stood for 3,000 years cracked and fell one by one. The blue rivers that had flowed since the dawn of time turned red with ash and debris. "Ambassador, we need to evacuate the platform," said Deho, her young aide. His voice shook as he spoke. "The Devourer ships are moving closer." Kira did not move from the observation window. She had lived for 250 years, which was still young for her people, but she had never seen anything like this. The Devourers did not just destroy things. They ate them. Their weapons broke apart matter itself and fed the pieces back into their ships. Where the capital city of Norvac had stood just hours ago, there was now empty space. Not even rubble remained. The Devourers had consumed everything down to the last atom. "How many evacuation ships made it out?" she asked. Deho checked his datapad with trembling fingers. 47 ships carrying about 2 million people. That leaves 8 billion still on the surface. 8 billion souls who would be gone in a matter of hours. Kira closed her eyes and tried not to think about it. As the chief diplomat for the Valenti people, she had spent her entire career solving problems with words. But there were no words that could stop this. "Send the distress beacon," she said quietly. "Ma'am, I already sent it an hour ago. The responses are coming in now." Kira turned away from the window and walked to the communication center. The main screen showed a list of the galaxy's major civilizations and their replies to the Valenti cry for help. The Altarians had responded first. Their message was polite but clear. "The Altarian Fleet Command regrets that our forces are currently engaged in strategic repositioning operations. We are unable to provide direct military assistance at this time. Strategic repositioning." Kira almost laughed at the formal language. They were running away and trying to make it sound official. The Nexus Confederation's reply was even worse. "After careful consideration by the High Council, we have determined that intervention in this conflict would pose unacceptable risks to Confederation security interests. We wish the Valenti people success in resolving this matter." The Zephyrian Empire had not even bothered to send a formal reply. Their ambassador had simply transmitted a single word: declined. More responses kept coming in. The hegemony of free world cited resource allocation priorities. The Crystal Union mentioned prior commitments to defensive protocols. The Trade Federation expressed deep sympathy, but offered no ships or weapons. Civilization after civilization turned their backs on the people who had kept the peace for 3 millennia. "This cannot be happening," Deho whispered as he read the messages. "We saved the Altarians during the Plague Wars. We negotiated the peace treaty that ended the Zephyrian Civil War. We have been friends and allies to all of them. Fear makes people forget friendship," Kira said. She had seen it before in smaller conflicts, but never on this scale. "They think if they ignore us, the Devourers will be satisfied with just one conquest." "Will they be?" Kira looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. Hundreds of massive ships shaped like black triangles hung in space around her world. Intelligence reports said they had destroyed 3 other star systems in the past month. Each victory had only made them stronger as they consumed more matter and energy. "No," she said. "They will not stop until they have eaten everything." The platform shook again as the Devourers began targeting the orbital installations. Through the window, Kira could see one of the smaller defense stations explode in a ball of white fire. The debris did not scatter as it should have. Instead, the wreckage was pulled toward the enemy ships and disappeared into their dark hulls. "We should go to the evacuation ships," Deho said. "There is nothing more we can do here." But Kira was not ready to give up. As long as the communication array still functioned, she would keep trying. "Send the beacon to the Outer Rim territories. Maybe some of the younger species will help." "The humans?" "Among others." Deho looked surprised. "Ma'am, the humans have only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. They barely have faster than light travel. What could they possibly do against this? Kira did not answer. She watched the screen as the beacon reached the small blue world called Earth in the Orion Arm. The humans were considered primitive by galactic standards. Their technology was crude, and their military was tiny. Most advanced species barely acknowledged their existence. But Kira remembered meeting their first ambassador 20 years ago. He had been different from the other diplomats. While everyone else spoke carefully about trade agreements and territorial boundaries, the human had asked simple questions. Who needs help? How can we make things better? The reply from Earth came faster than expected. The message was short and written in the simple, direct style that humans seem to prefer. Received. Your distress call. We understand the situation. Preparing relief fleet now. Estimated arrival in 48 hours. Hold on. Deho stared at the message. That is it? No discussion of strategic implications or risk assessments? No committee meetings or cost-benefit analysis? Kira added, feeling something she had not felt in hours. Hope. But they only have a dozen ships. Deho protested. The Devourers have hundreds. This is suicide. Another explosion rocked the platform, and emergency lights began flashing red throughout the command center. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making Kira's stomach lurch. All stations report critical damage to primary systems, announced the platform's computer voice. Evacuation protocols are now in effect. All personnel must proceed to emergency transport bays. Kira looked one more time at the small blue dot on the star map. Somewhere out there, a species barely older than children was loading their primitive ships with weapons and preparing to face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations 10 times their age. Ambassador, we must go now, Deho urged. As they hurried toward the evacuation bay, Kira could not stop thinking about the human message. No excuses, no complicated explanations, no political calculations. Just 4 simple words that no other species in the galaxy had been willing to say. We are coming. The transport ship pulled away from the dying platform just as the Devourers began their final assault on the orbital installations. As Corvara Prime burned below them, Kira held on to one impossible hope. That somewhere in the darkness of space, help was on the way. Captain Jae-woo Kim stood in the briefing room aboard the Earth Defense Force cruiser Seoul, staring at the holographic display that showed the Corvara system. Red dots marked the locations of Devourer ships, and there were so many of them that the display looked like it was covered in blood. Sir, I have to say this one more time, Admiral Bora Park said from across the table. We are talking about sending 12 ships against a force that has destroyed 3 entire civilizations. The math does not work in our favor. Jae-woo had heard these arguments for the past 6 hours, ever since Earth Command had received the Valenti distress call. Every admiral, every general, every military advisor had told him the same thing. This mission was impossible. The Altarians had over 400 warships, continued General Dong-Su from the main screen, speaking from Earth. The Zephyrian Empire has been building their fleet for 2,000 years. If they cannot stop these Devourers, what makes us think we can? Because we are not them, Jae-woo said simply. The room fell quiet. Through the large windows, Jae-woo could see the other 11 ships of the human fleet floating in space around them. They were small compared to the massive vessels that other species built. The Seoul was barely 300 meters long, while a single Altarian battleship measured over 2 kilometers. Captain Kim, said Dr. Hyun-woo Lee, the mission's chief scientist, I have been studying the intelligence data we received from the Valenti. The Devourer technology operates on principles we have never seen before. Explain it in simple terms, Doctor. Hyun-woo activated his data pad and shared the information with the room's displays. Images of the strange black ships appeared, along with diagrams showing their energy signatures. They do not just destroy matter, Hyun-woo said. They break it down at the quantum level and convert it directly into energy. Think of it as accelerated decay. They can make anything fall apart just by pointing their weapons at it. That explains how they consumed entire cities, muttered Commander Soo-jin from the communication station. They were not blowing them up. They were unmaking them. Exactly. But here is the interesting part. Hyunwoo highlighted a section of the energy readings. Their weapons work by imposing perfect mathematical order on chaotic systems. They force matter to follow predictable patterns, which makes it easier to break apart. Admiral Park frowned. What does that mean for us? It means their technology has never faced truly chaotic systems. Every civilization they have encountered operates on logical principles. Even in war, the other species follow predictable strategies and patterns. Jae-woo began to understand where this was going. But humans do not fight logically. Not at all. Human military doctrine is based on centuries of fighting other humans, who are the most unpredictable opponents in the galaxy. We use tactics that make no sense to a computer. We take risks that no logical mind would consider. General Dong-soo shook his head on the main screen. Doctor, you are talking about using our chaotic nature as a weapon. That is not strategy. That is gambling. Sometimes gambling is the only strategy that works, Jae-woo said. He had learned that lesson during the border wars 20 years ago, when human forces had defeated a much larger rebel fleet by doing exactly what no one expected. Sir, interrupted Lieutenant Taemin from the Marine section, my boarding teams are ready. If we can get close enough to their ships, we can cause some real damage. Close enough means suicide, Admiral Park pointed out. Their defensive systems will tear us apart long before we reach boarding range. Will they? Jae-woo asked. He walked over to the tactical display and studied the Devourer fleet formations. Look at how they position their ships. Perfect geometric patterns, optimal firing solutions, mathematical precision. That makes them more dangerous, not less. No, it makes them predictable. They are expecting us to approach in standard formation, following normal attack patterns. But what if we do not? Dr. Hyunwoo's eyes lit up. Captain, are you suggesting we use human unpredictability as a tactical advantage? I am suggesting we do what humans do best. We improvise. Over the next hour, they developed a battle plan that would have made every military academy instructor quit in horror. Instead of maintaining proper fleet formation, the human ships would scatter and attack from random directions. Instead of targeting logical priorities like command ships or weapons platforms, they would strike wherever opportunity presented itself. We will use our smallest ships as decoys, Jae-woo explained, pointing to the corvettes Hope and Defiance on the display. They will draw attention while the larger vessels circle around. And if the decoy ships get destroyed? Asked Admiral Park. Then their crews will have bought us the time we need. Commander Soo-jin looked up from her station. Sir, I am receiving a message from the Valenti evacuation fleet. They are asking for our estimated time of arrival. Tell them 47 hours. Should I mention our fleet size? Jae-woo considered this. The Valenti were expecting help from a major military power. If they knew that only 12 small human ships were coming, they might lose hope entirely. Tell them that Earth is sending everything we have. That is technically true, muttered Lieutenant Taemin. As the meeting ended and the officers returned to their ships, Admiral Park approached Jae-woo privately. Captain, I want you to know that I think this mission is insane. But I also think you might be the only person crazy enough to make it work. Thank you, Admiral. I think there is something else. Earth Command has authorized you to use Protocol 7 if necessary. Jae-woo felt a chill run down his spine. Protocol 7 was the final option, the one that no military commander ever wanted to consider. It meant using his own ship as a weapon. Let us hope it does not come to that. Yes, sir. But if it does, remember that the entire human race is counting on you. As the Soul prepared to enter hyperspace, Jae-woo stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. In a few hours, they would drop out of faster-than-light travel in a system where an ancient enemy was destroying everything they touched. DQ. Odds against human victory were approximately 4,000 to 1. But humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. This is Captain Kim to all ships, he announced over the fleet communication system. We are about to attempt something that every military expert says cannot be done. We are going to save a civilization that has already been written off as lost. Sir, asked Commander Sujin, what should I log as our primary mission objective? Jae-woo smiled grimly. Write this, to do what no one else was willing to try. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 12 small ships and 3,000 human souls toward what would become the most important battle in galactic history. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation around an ordinary yellow star, unaware that its children were about to teach the galaxy what courage really meant. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Corvara system, and Captain Jae-woo Kim immediately knew they were too late to save the planet. Where the beautiful blue world should have been, there was only a slowly expanding cloud of dust and debris. My God, whispered Commander Sujin from her position at the communication station. They consumed the entire planet. Through the main view screen, the crew of the Soul could see the Devourer fleet in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of black triangular ships, each one the size of a small moon, floated in perfect formation around what had once been Corvara Prime. They moved with mechanical precision, like pieces of some vast cosmic machine. Captain, reported Lieutenant Minho from the engineering station, I am detecting massive energy readings from the enemy vessels. They are not just destroying matter. They are converting it and storing it somehow. They are feeding, said Dr. Hyunwoo, his voice filled with horror as he studied the sensor readings. The energy signatures show they are breaking down planetary mass and absorbing it directly into their ships. Jae-woo forced himself to look away from the destruction and focus on the tactical situation. Any sign of Valenti survivors? Yes, sir, Sujin replied with relief in her voice. I am detecting 17 evacuation ships moving away from the system. They are badly damaged but still operational. Open a channel. The main screen flickered, and Ambassador Kira appeared. Her elegant features were strained with exhaustion and grief, but her eyes widened with surprise when she saw the human captain. Captain Kim, she said, you actually came. We said we would. Are you able to reach a safe distance? Yes, but it does not matter. Our military analysts estimate that the Devourer fleet is now 40% stronger than when they arrived. They consumed our entire world, including our orbital defense platforms and weapons depots. Jae-woo studied the tactical display. The numbers were even worse than Earth Command had predicted. How many ships do they have now? 437 primary vessels plus support craft. Captain, I appreciate what you are trying to do, but you have to understand. This enemy has destroyed civilizations that had thousands of ships. You cannot possibly succeed with 12. Maybe not with conventional tactics, Jae-woo admitted. But we are not going to use conventional tactics. On the Bridge of the Soul, Lieutenant Tae-min was preparing his Marine boarding teams for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. The plan was simple in its impossibility. Get close enough to the Devourer mothership to insert boarding pods, then fight their way to whatever passed for a command center. Sir, Tae-min reported, the boarding teams are ready. 40 Marines, across 4 pods. We have enough explosive charges to level a city block. Remember, the goal is not to destroy their ship, Dr. Hyunwoo explained to the assembled Marines over the communication system. Based on our analysis, their technology operates through a collective processing system. If we can disrupt that system with chaotic input, we might be able to cause a cascade failure. Sergeant Yoonji, leader of the second boarding team, raised her hand. Doctor, can you explain that in words we can understand? Their computers expect logical, predictable behavior. Human thoughts and actions are neither logical nor predictable. If we can force their systems to process human decision-making patterns, we might overload their processing capacity. So you want us to think really hard at them? In simple terms, yes. Think the most human thoughts you can. Be as chaotic and unpredictable as possible. The Marines looked at each other with expressions that mixed confusion with grim determination. They had trained for many types of missions, but never one that required them to weaponize their own humanity. All ships, this is Captain Kim, Jae-woo announced to the fleet. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. What happened next would have made every military strategist in the galaxy scream in horror. Instead of maintaining formation, the human ships scattered in all directions like startled birds. The corvette Hope dove straight toward the enemy fleet, at maximum speed. The destroyer Incheon began spinning wildly while firing in random directions. The cruiser Busan started flying in a zigzag pattern that made no tactical sense whatsoever. "Captain," Admiral Park called from the Sejong. "Are you sure about this strategy?" "No," Jae-woo replied honestly. "But I am sure the conventional strategy will not work." The Devourer response was immediate and predictable. Their ships moved to intercept the human vessels using optimal firing solutions and mathematically perfect formations. But as their weapons locked onto targets, something unexpected happened. "Sir," Minho called out with excitement in his voice. "Their targeting systems are having trouble maintaining locks. Our random movement patterns are confusing their tracking algorithms." "They are designed to fight logical opponents," Dr. Hyunwoo added. "Our chaotic flight patterns are outside their programming parameters." The first exchange of fire proved the point. Devourer energy beams, which should have vaporized the small human ships instantly, kept missing by narrow margins. Not because the humans were better pilots, but because their erratic maneuvers made no mathematical sense. "This is impossible," came Ambassador Kira's voice over the communication channel. "Your ships should have been destroyed already." "We specialize in impossible things," Commander Sujin replied while dodging another energy beam through a maneuver that violated 3 different laws of physics. The corvette Hope, piloted by the slightly insane Captain Park SEO, managed to slip through the Devourer defense grid entirely by flying in a pattern that resembled a drunken butterfly. Behind it, the boarding pods launched toward the massive mothership. "Boarding teams away," reported Lieutenant Tae-min as his pod plunged toward the alien vessel. "See you on the other side, Captain." "Good hunting, Lieutenant." As the boarding pods disappeared into the dark hull of the mothership, Jae-woo realized they had achieved something no other species had managed. They had surprised the Devourers. For the first time in the enemy's long history of conquest, their perfect predictions had failed. "All ships maintain evasive patterns," he ordered. "Keep them confused while our people do their work." In the depths of space, 12 small human ships danced around hundreds of alien giants, proving that sometimes the best strategy was to have no strategy at all. The real battle was just beginning. Lieutenant Tae-min felt his boarding pod shudder as it cut through the hull of the Devourer mothership. The metal around them screamed and twisted as the pod's cutting beam sliced through alien armor that was harder than diamond. Then, with a final grinding sound, they were through. "All teams report status," he said into his helmet communicator as his 4 Marines checked their weapons. "Team 2 ready," came Sergeant Yoonji's voice. "We are in some kind of corridor system. The walls look like they are breathing." "Team 3 operational," reported Corporal Jong-soo. "This place is weird, sir. The gravity keeps changing direction." "Team 4 is good to go," added Private Hyewan. "But I think we landed in their cafeteria. Everything here looks like it wants to eat us instead of the other way around." Taemin looked around the chamber where his team had landed. The walls were made of some dark material that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Strange geometric patterns covered every surface, and the air hummed with energy that made his teeth ache. "Remember the mission," he told all teams. "We need to reach their central processing core. Dr. Hyunwoo's readings suggest it should be in the center of the ship." "Sir," asked Private Min Jun from his team, "how exactly are we supposed to fight these things with our thoughts?" "By being human," Taemin replied, though he was not entirely sure what that meant either. They moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that twisted and curved in ways that hurt to look at. The Devourer architecture was based on perfect mathematical principles, with every angle and distance calculated for maximum efficiency. But as the humans walked through it, something strange began to happen. "The walls are shifting," observed Corporal Myung-hee from Team 2. "Every time I look away and look back, the corridor has changed shape. Their defensive systems are trying to guide us into kill zones," Taemin realized. "But they keep recalculating based on where they think we should go." The problem for the Devourers was that humans did not go where they should go. When faced with a corridor that obviously led to a trap, Sergeant Yoonji decided to blow a hole in the wall and go through sideways. When the floor tried to guide Team 3 toward a deadly energy field, Corporal Jong-soo chose to walk on the ceiling instead. "This is Team 4, came Hyewan's voice over the communicator. "We found something that looks like their computer system. It is trying to talk to us." "What is it saying?" "I think it is asking us to please behave logically so it can kill us properly." Despite the danger, Taemin found himself grinning. The most advanced war machines in the galaxy were confused by human stubbornness. They had faced countless civilizations with better technology and superior weapons, but they had never encountered a species that refused to follow the rules. As they reached the ship's intersections, the defensive systems became more aggressive. Energy barriers appeared to block their path, but the humans simply found ways around them that no computer could predict. When faced with a room full of deadly laser grids, Private Min Jun started dancing through them like he was at a nightclub. The targeting systems could not calculate his next move because he did not know his next move himself. "Sir," reported Dr. Hyunwoo's voice from the Soul, "I am detecting massive processing fluctuations throughout the enemy fleet. Whatever you are doing in there, it is working." "We are confusing them to death," Taemin replied as he watched Team 2 Sergeant Yoonji solve a complex alien lock by hitting it with her rifle until it opened. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The Devourers began adapting their defenses, trying to account for human unpredictability. Energy weapons started firing in random patterns. Walls began shifting without warning. The ship itself seemed to be having a nervous breakdown. "Team 3 is pinned down," reported Corporal Jong-soo. "They have us surrounded with some kind of mechanical spiders. Big ones." "Team 4 here," added Hee-won. "We lost Private Sungmin to an energy trap. The ship is learning our tactics." Taemin felt a cold weight in his stomach. They were running out of time and losing people. "All teams, accelerate toward the core. Whatever we are going to do, we need to do it fast." As they fought their way through increasingly deadly defenses, the Marines began to understand what Dr. Hyunwoo had meant about weaponizing their humanity. Every time they acted on instinct instead of logic, every time they chose emotion over reason, the ship's system struggled to compensate. When Corporal Myung-hee saw an alien weapon that reminded her of her dead brother's favorite toy, she attacked it with such fury that the defensive grid shut down entirely, rather than try to calculate her emotional response. When Private Min Jun found himself trapped in a room with no visible exits, he sat down and started singing an old folk song his grandmother had taught him. The ship's systems, designed to process threats and tactical responses, had no programming for dealing with human music. The walls simply opened, as if the ship was begging him to leave. "This is Team 2, came Yoonji's strained voice. "We reached something that looks like the central core. It is massive, sir. Like a crystal cathedral but made of dark energy. Can you access it?" "That is the problem. It wants to access us. I think it is trying to absorb our minds." Through his helmet's camera link, Taemin could see what Team 2 had found. The core was a vast crystalline structure that pulsed with the stored consciousness of billions of absorbed beings. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like looking at the grave of an entire galaxy. "Sir?" Dr. Hyunwoo's voice crackled through increasing interference. "If you can establish a neural link with the core, you might be able to flood their collective consciousness with human thought patterns. But the person who makes the connection will not survive," Taemin finished. "I understand." "I will do it," said Sergeant Yoonji without hesitation. "I am closest to the core." "Yoonji, no. That is an order." "With respect, sir, you are not. Here and I am. Besides, someone needs to give these perfect alien minds a good look at human imperfection." Before Taemin could stop her, Yoonji removed her helmet and placed her hand on the crystal surface. The effect was immediate and devastating. The core began to pulse erratically as it tried to process the chaotic flood of human memories, emotions, and experiences. Through the neural link, the collective consciousness of the Devourers experienced something they had never encountered in their millions of years of existence. the beautiful, illogical, impossible complexity of being human. They felt Yoonji's childhood fear of thunderstorms. They experienced her love for her family. They shared her memories of laughter and sorrow, hope and despair, dreams and nightmares. Most importantly, they felt her willingness to die for strangers she had never met. The Devourer collective mind, built on perfect logic and mathematical certainty, began to crack under the weight of human paradox. Throughout the ship, systems started failing as the core struggled to reconcile the impossible contradiction of human nature with its own ordered existence. Sergeant Yoon-ji smiled one last time before the energy consumed her, knowing that her sacrifice had given the galaxy a chance. The Devourer mothership began to shake, as Sergeant Yoon-ji's sacrifice sent shockwaves through the collective consciousness. Lieutenant Taemin watched through his helmet display as the massive crystal core flickered between brilliant light and absolute darkness, struggling to process the chaotic flood of human memories. "All teams report status," he called out, though static was making communication difficult. "Team 3 here," came Corporal Jong-soo's voice, distorted by interference. "The ship is going crazy, walls are melting, gravity is reversing every few seconds. It is like the whole place is having a breakdown." "Team 4 reporting," added Private Haiwan. "The mechanical spiders just stopped moving. They are standing perfectly still like someone turned them off." Through the ship's corridors, the surviving Marines could see the effects of what Yoon-ji had done. The perfect geometric patterns on the walls were dissolving into random shapes. Energy conduits that had pulsed with mechanical rhythm now sparked and flowed in chaotic bursts. The Devourer technology, built on absolute mathematical order, was trying to process something it had never encountered: the beautiful mess of human consciousness. "Sir," Dr. Hyunwoo's voice crackled through the static from the soul. "The entire enemy fleet is showing signs of system failure. Their formation is breaking apart. Whatever Sergeant Yoon-ji did, it is spreading to all their ships." Lieutenant Taemin looked at the readings on his tactical display. The neural link had not just affected the mothership's core, it had somehow transmitted human thought patterns through the collective network that connected all Devourer vessels. Across space, hundreds of alien ships were struggling with the same impossible contradiction. But the victory was coming at a terrible price. "This is Team 2, came Corporal Myung-hee's strained voice. "The core is pulling us in. I can feel it trying to get inside my head." "Get away from it," Taemin ordered. "Cannot, sir. The room is sealed and the crystal is growing larger. It wants more human minds." Taemin realized with horror what was happening. The Devourer collective was not just failing. It was hungry for more of the chaotic input that was destroying it. Like an addict demanding poison, it was trying to absorb every human consciousness it could find. "All teams, evacuate immediately." That is a direct order. But even as he gave the command, Taemin knew some of his people would not make it out. The ship's systems were collapsing, but they were also becoming more desperate and dangerous as they failed. On the Seoul's bridge, Captain Jae-woo Kim watched the tactical display with growing alarm. The human boarding teams had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest hopes, but the Devourer fleet was not dying quietly. As their collective consciousness fractured, the alien ships began moving erratically, firing weapons in random directions and colliding with each other. "Captain," reported Commander Soo-jin, "I am detecting massive energy buildup in the mothership's core. If that thing explodes, it will take out half the system." "Distance to minimum safe range? At maximum speed, 47 minutes. The energy buildup will reach critical levels in 12 minutes. Dr. Hyunwoo looked up from his sensor readings with desperate eyes. "Sir, there might be a way to contain the explosion. If we can channel the energy discharge through the ship's own quantum field generators, we might be able to create a controlled implosion instead of an explosion." "How do we do that?" "Someone would need to manually recalibrate the mothership's power systems from the inside. It would require staying on the ship until the very last moment." The bridge fell silent as everyone understood what that meant. Jae-woo closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. "This is Captain Kim to Lieutenant Taemin. I need you to do one more impossible thing." Inside the dying mothership, Timon listened to his captain's explanation with growing understanding. He looked around at his remaining Marines, brave men and women who had followed him into the depths of an alien nightmare. Only 7 of them were left now. "Sir," said Private Minjun quietly, "we all volunteered for this mission knowing we might not come home." "We can save everyone," added Corporal Jiangsu. "The entire galaxy. That is worth something, right?" Taemin felt a strange calm settle over him. For his entire life, he had wondered if he would ever do something that truly mattered. Now he knew. "This is Lieutenant Taemin to all human ships," he announced over the communication system. "My team will handle the power recalibration. Get our people home, Captain." "Taemin, there has to be another way. There is not, and we both know it. Tell Earth that we did our duty." On the Sol, Captain Jae-woo Kim felt tears running down his face as he gave the order he had hoped never to give. "All ships, implement. Protocol 7, prepare for ramming speed." "Sir?" Commander Su-jin looked at him in shock. "If those Marines are willing to die to save the galaxy, then I am willing to die to make sure their sacrifice counts. Set course for the mothership's quantum core." Admiral Park's voice came over the communication system from the Sejong. "Captain, you cannot mean to ram that ship. The Sol has over 200 crew members, and the galaxy has trillions of innocent people who deserve to live. Sometimes the math is simple, Admiral." As the Sol accelerated toward the Devourer Moth ship, Lieutenant Taemin and his team raced through collapsing corridors toward the ship's power control center. The alien technology was failing all around them, creating a maze of deadly energy discharges and structural collapses. "Almost there," Taemin called out as they reached a massive chamber filled with towering energy conduits. "Dr. Hyun-woo, walk us through the recalibration sequence." The scientist's voice was steady despite the impossible situation. "You need to reverse the polarity on the main quantum field generators. That should create an implosion field instead of an explosion. And if we get the timing wrong, then we all die a few seconds earlier than planned." With expert precision born of desperation, the Marines began rewiring alien technology they barely understood. Private Min Jun proved surprisingly good at reading energy flow patterns. Corporal Jiangsu's steady hands made delicate adjustments to quantum field generators. Together, they turned the Devourer mothership's own power systems into a weapon against itself. "Recalibration complete," Taemin reported. "Field implosion will activate in 30 seconds. This is Captain Kim. The Sol is in position. It has been an honor serving with all of you." As the human cruiser Sol rammed into the heart of the dying mothership, Captain Jae-woo Kim's last thought was of Earth, spinning peacefully around its yellow sun, safe because 12 ships had chosen to answer a call for help. The implosion that followed was visible across 3 star systems, a brief new star that burned bright and then collapsed into nothing, taking with it the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. In the silence that followed, Ambassador Kira looked out from her evacuation ship at the empty space where the Devourer fleet had been, and whispered a prayer of gratitude for the species that had taught the galaxy what courage truly meant. 6 months after the Battle of Corvara, Ambassador Kira stood before the Galactic Council on the newly constructed station above the restored homeworld. The chamber was filled with representatives from 47 different species, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that had once symbolized the diversity and strength of galactic civilization. Now that same diversity felt like a mark of shame. "Honored council members," Kira began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems, "I stand before you today to deliver the final report on the Devourer War and the human intervention that ended it." The chamber was unusually quiet. Normally, Galactic Council sessions were filled with the sound of whispered conversations, the rustle of diplomatic notes, and the soft hum of various life support systems. Today there was only silence and the weight of collective guilt. "The facts are simple," Kira continued. "When my people called for help, 46 civilizations declined to assist. Some cited strategic concerns. Others mentioned resource limitations. Many simply chose not to respond at all." She paused and looked directly at the Altarian delegation, whose representative shifted uncomfortably in his hover chair. The 47th civilization, humanity, responded with a single word: yes. On the massive display screen behind her, images appeared of the 12 human ships that had answered the Valenti distress call. They looked tiny and primitive compared to the sleek vessels of the major galactic powers. The Sol, flagship of the human fleet, was smaller than most species used for simple cargo runs. The human fleet consisted of 12 vessels with a total crew of 3,000 individuals, Kira stated. They faced a devourer armada of over 400 ships. By any logical military analysis, their mission was impossible. Then why did they attempt it? Asked Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire, his mechanical voice translator making the question sound especially cold. Because we asked for help. The simple answer hung in the air like an accusation. Around the chamber, representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations found themselves unable to meet Kira's steady gaze. The human strategy was unlike anything in recorded military history, she continued. Instead of following established tactical doctrine, they chose to embrace chaos. They used their own unpredictability as a weapon against an enemy that relied on mathematical precision. New images appeared on the screen, the chaotic battle patterns of the human ships, their seemingly random movements that had confused the devourer targeting systems. But strategy alone did not win this war. What defeated the devourers was something that cannot be measured or calculated: the willingness of ordinary individuals to sacrifice everything for strangers they had never met. The screen showed the faces of the boarding team Marines who had penetrated the devourer mothership. Lieutenant Taemin, Sergeant Yoonji, Corporal Jong-soo, Private Min-jun, and dozens of others. Young faces, most of them, from a species that had barely begun to explore the galaxy. Sergeant Yoonji, age 24, gave her life to establish a neural link with the devourer collective consciousness. Her human memories and emotions caused a cascade failure in their entire network. Kira's voice grew quieter, but somehow more powerful. Captain Jae-woo Kim, along with 273 crew members of the Sol, chose to ram the enemy mothship to ensure the destruction was complete. Their sacrifice ended a threat that had destroyed 3 civilizations and would have consumed dozens more. In the Altarian section, Ambassador Thumal spoke up with barely controlled emotion. We understand the magnitude of their sacrifice, but you must realize that our decision was based on practical considerations. Sending our fleets against such odds would have been suicide. Yes, Kira agreed. It was suicide. The humans knew that. They came anyway. But that is irrational, protested the Nexus Confederation representative. No logical analysis would support such an action. Exactly. That is the point you are all missing. Kira activated a new section of the display, showing psychological profiles of human behavior patterns. For 3 millennia, galactic civilization has been built on logic, efficiency, and calculated risk assessment. We pride ourselves on making rational decisions based on available data. But what happens when logic fails? What happens when the rational choice is to abandon your allies? She gestured toward the empty seats where the Corvarian delegation should have been sitting. The humans showed us something we had forgotten, that some things are more important than logic. Honor, compassion, the willingness to help others even when it costs you everything. These are not weaknesses to be calculated away. They are the foundations of true civilization. Ambassador Veltar's mechanical voice cut through the silence. Are you suggesting we should all embrace irrational behavior? I am suggesting that what we call irrational might actually be the highest form of wisdom. Kira touched a control, and new images filled the screen. These showed recent developments from across the galaxy. Altarian ships responding to distress calls they would have previously ignored, Zephyrian military academies studying human tactical doctrine, Nexus trade vessels carrying emergency supplies to refugee populations. In the 6 months since the Devourer War ended, we have seen remarkable changes throughout galactic society. Species that had not communicated in centuries are working together on mutual defense pacts. Military forces are being restructured to prioritize rapid response over strategic positioning. Most importantly, the concept of calculated abandonment is being replaced by an obligation to assist. Because of human influence, when asked a representative from the Crystal Union, because of human example, they showed us that true strength comes not from having the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology, but from being willing to use what you have for others. The chamber fell silent again as Kira prepared to deliver her final statement. The official casualty report shows that 2,273 humans died in the Battle of Corvara. Only 1 in 27 survived. By any military standard, this represents a catastrophic loss rate of over 90%. She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from every major civilization. But those 2,173 souls did not die in vain. They died so that billions of others could live. They died so that we could learn what courage truly means. And they died so that we could remember that civilization is not about how advanced your technology is or how logical your decisions are. It is about how far you are willing to go for someone who needs help. The final image on the screen was simple. The blue marble of Earth, hanging in space like a precious jewel. The humans have established training programs on 17 worlds, teaching other species their unique approach to crisis response. They call it the Chaos Protocol, a method of tactical thinking that embraces unpredictability and emotional decision-making. Are these programs effective? Asked the Zephyrian ambassador. 3 weeks ago, a Nexus Confederation fleet used Chaos Protocol tactics to successfully evacuate the Kepler-7 colony ahead of a stellar storm. Traditional evacuation models predicted a 60% casualty rate. The actual rate was 0%. Murmurs of interest rippled through the chamber. The humans are also establishing what they call the Answer Protocol. Any civilization that sends a distress call will receive an immediate response, regardless of political considerations or strategic implications. 17 species have already signed on as participants. Ambassador Veltar leaned forward. And Earth's position in the galactic hierarchy? Kira smiled for the first time since beginning her presentation. There is no hierarchy anymore. The humans taught us that true leadership does not come from having the most power. It comes from being the first to help when help is needed. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, many stopped to speak with Kira privately. The Altarian ambassador requested information about establishing an Answer Protocol chapter in his territory. The Zephyrian Empire wanted to send military officers to study at the Human Tactical Academy on Luna. Even the proud Crystal Union asked about cultural exchange programs. Later, standing alone in the chamber, Kira looked out through the great windows at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a small blue world, humanity continued its quiet revolution. They were teaching the galaxy that the greatest technology of all was the willingness to care for one another. The age of calculated civilizations was ending. The age of heroes, as the humans had shown them, had just begun. For the first time in her long life, Ambassador Kira felt truly hopeful about the future of galactic civilization. The humans had answered when others would not. Now, inspired by their example, the galaxy was learning to answer as well.